Exotic class items should be, by all accounts, nothing but an overwhelming success. But despite being introduced into a game that continues to become more and more focused on build crafting as time goes on, exotic class items have instead shown themselves to be more of a point of contention and frustration. How did this happen?
I have no idea.
Well, interestingly, it has nothing to do with their actual function, as they have been game-changing when it comes to creating unique and enjoyable builds to provide interesting new gameplay loops. The actual problem that seems to be plaguing the entire Destiny community is obtaining them in the first place. Not necessarily obtaining an exotic class item itself, but rather obtaining one that is worth using. My goal with this video is to explain the problems surrounding exotic class item acquisition in hopes that this gains traction and makes its way to the eyes of Bungie devs, who can contemplate some of the solutions we'll be presenting today. So hit those like and subscribe buttons if you are all aboard the revolutionization of exotic class item acquisition, and let's change things for the better. Before we can propose solutions, however, we first need to understand what the actual problem is. At a surface level, you might just think, well, the problem is simple. Getting a specific role that you want is just too hard. And while I wouldn't disagree with that sentiment, is that really all that's going on here? As of the making of this video, each class has 16 potential perks that can fit into 2 available slots on each class item, making for a total possible 64 perk combinations and thus 64 unique possible exotic class items per class. And due to the fact that the game offers no form of knockout system, bad luck protection, or safeguards against duplicates, you have a plain and simple 1 in 64 chance of getting your desired combination from any given drop. That's a 1 in 64 chance on your first drop, a 1 in 64 chance on your second drop, and a 1 in 64 chance on your 100th drop. There is no light at the end of the tunnel when chasing that Caliban Liar's God roll. Trust me, I would know. But that's not even as bad as it can get. I mean, let's say you're an aspirational Destiny collector and you want all of the possible roles. I mean, after all, a looter shooter game like Destiny is at least 50% about getting all of the loot if we are going based off the genre name. How long exactly would that take? Well, to obtain all 64 possible combinations for a given class, you would need to obtain an average of 304 total exotic class item drops, 240 of which would be duplicate roles. Now, I am all for the grind and having loot to chase after over long periods of time, but to put this monstrous task into perspective, if you acquired exotic class items through the current fastest obtainable method in the game, the Dual Destiny exotic mission, and averaged a modest 20-minute runtime across your 304 runs, this would take you 101 hours or 4.2 days of straight non-stop dual Destiny gameplay. And that's just for one character. If you wanted to get all 64 drops for all 3 classes, then these values jump up to 192 unique class items obtained over 912 runs, spanning 303 hours or 12.6 days of non-stop play. I don't care who you are or how much you love difficult to acquire loot, that is an absolutely ludicrous requirement. So how do we fix it? Well, the first thing that might come to your mind is to bring back the formerly bugged double drops to Dual Destiny. But looking at the numbers, all that would do is take our average 304 required runs down to an average of 152 required runs. While this is certainly a significant improvement, does running Dual Destiny 152 times per character sound like a fun and viable solution? No. So you might then think, okay, well then let's add some dupe protection as well. Say perhaps that any role that you already have is only 50% as likely to drop compared to a role that you do not already possess. In doing so, we would take our average required runs to acquire all exotic class items for one class down to an average of 184 runs with an average of 120 duplicate drops, or half those runs at 92 per class if you implemented this alongside the reinstitution of double drops. In all honesty, running Dual Destiny an average of 92 times per class still doesn't sound like my idea of a good time. So then let's take a closer look at what seems to be the main problem here: duplicates. So let's implement a knockout system. One and done. If you have a role in your inventory or vault, that role can no longer drop, resulting in 64 required Dual Destiny runs per class to get all required roles. Maybe I'm just getting old, but running anything in Destiny 64 times per class or 192 times in total just doesn't sound fun. So what on earth can we do to fix this problem? Well, what if I told you that I think that the general Destiny community is looking at this issue all wrong? That main issue, in my opinion, is not necessarily the astounding 64 possible combinations or even the possibility of duplicates, but rather the number of exotic class item acquisition sources. There are countless loot sources in Destiny: Patrol, Strikes, Gambit, Crucible, Trials, Iron Banner, Nightfalls, Grandmaster Nightfalls, 7 dungeons, 8 raids, exotic missions, Pathfinders, vendor resets, seasonal activities, and on and on and on. Yet when you look at the literal hundreds of ways that you can earn loot in Destiny, only 3 of those methods have a non-zero chance to reward exotic class items. These are, of course, the Dual Destiny mission, something that takes about 20 minutes per run, requires a teammate, and provides no other loot, chest farming and patrol, which no one has done in years for good reason, and the co-op campaign missions, which I bet you probably didn't even know had a chance to drop them because no one is running those outside of people who are still doing the microcosm quest. Contrast this with something like traditional exotic armor drops, which can be earned through Vex Offensive, Legend Lost Sectors, Grandmaster Nightfalls, any vendor reset, or literally even just getting a lucky engram drop from any enemy in the entire game. Any second that you spend playing Destiny is also a second that could reward an exotic engram, and it is in my humble opinion that this is the very solution to the exotic class item acquisition problem. So what specifically should be done? Well, first things first, any aspirational activity in all of Destiny should reward an exotic class item drop. Things like maxing out wins on a Trials of Osiris passage, completing a full raid, beating a Grandmaster Nightfall, resetting a vendor rank for any vendor in the game, or completing a full Pathfinder scheme. This change alone will result in progress towards an exotic class item drop for any second that you spend playing Destiny 2. Furthermore, this also gives us the opportunity to look at some beautifully designed activities like Grandmaster Excision and give players more reasons to partake in them beyond a single clear for the Ergo Sum Catalyst. Gathering 11 other friends and triumphing over a Grandmaster Excision is no small feat, so much so to the point that I feel it's not completely unreasonable to guarantee 2 exotic class item drops per Grandmaster Excision clear, with a chance to get an additional one for a total of 3. Couple this with occasional double loot weeks like we have seen for Grandmaster Nightfalls and PvP, and it could become one of the most looked forward to and collaborative community events Destiny has ever seen. Now, yes, despite these changes, Dual Destiny would still be the fastest way to farm exotic class items, with solo chest farming and patrol being a comparable solo option, especially considering how laid back and leisurely it is. The goal here is not to make the original source outdated, as Dual Destiny is an absolute masterpiece. The goal here instead is to make it so that players have options beyond Dual Destiny to receive additional class item drops, adding a supplemental incentive to the entirety of Destiny's loot journey in all facets of the game. Because no matter how good the Dual Destiny mission is, running it nearly 1,000 times to unlock all of the loot available through it is simply not an enjoyable time for any player of the franchise. Exotic class items are an opportunity to enrich what has come to be one of the most beloved aspects of Destiny in interesting and unique builds. They were also added in a way that can give players that moment of hype similar to receiving the Galahorn or Vex Mythoclast in year 1 of Destiny 1. I think it's a good thing to have things in the game that can make someone's entire week when they see it drop. I just think it's important to have that magical possibility of a God Roll exotic class item drop to be present in all areas of the game rather than being secluded to just a handful of missions. So to summarize, here is how I would fix the problem that is acquisition of exotic class items. Step 1 is to remedy the issue of duplicate drops, which in my opinion is best done by setting the drop chance of any already owned exotic class item to 50% of that of an unowned class item. As we said before, this would require a total average of 184 class item drops per character to eventually own every single exotic class item combo in the game. This is certainly still a lot of drops, but remember, this isn't something that's meant to be done in a week, and it's okay for the idea of acquiring 64 unique rolls of armor to require a bit of a grind. What isn't okay, however, is only being able to acquire those 184 drops from one mission in the entire game, which is why step 2 of the solution is to add exotic class item drops to all sources of Destiny content. By increasing the number of sources that exotic class items can drop from, players will acquire drops much more naturally just through the activities that they are already playing with friends. Furthermore, this gives players another reason to hop into activities with friends that they have already gotten all of the loot from. For example, if a friend asks you to run a Crota's End raid with them, but you already have all of the weapons crafted from that raid, at least you'll still have an exotic class item waiting for you at the end of your run. In doing this in all areas of Destiny, that 184 drop figure becomes significantly more reasonable as you'll be accruing a significant number of exotic class items through the activities that you already do. And for those who want to expedite that process and acquire all possible rolls even more quickly, you'll still have the farmable dual Destiny mission that you can run to your heart's content. So if you watching this right now agree in any part with the proposition that this video poses, please put your stamp of approval on it by hitting that like button down below. If you feel there is anything I missed or any alternate solutions that you would propose, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, tagging that subscribe button so I can catch you in the next one would be a real pleasure. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great